All right, so we're going to start with wind. Wind erosion. How does this agent of erosion transport materials? Okay, and honestly, you can't really get much better than that. Wind picks up sediments. So it smells like they put some sort of cleaner in our drain system. And it's super overpowering, like chemical cleaner smell right now. So I left the door open, hoping it'll air out, but I'm assuming that's why you guys are all sneezing. I'm guessing. So hopefully that'll air out. All right, so wind picks up sediment. So number 2, what are the types and features of this agent of erosion? So I'm looking for, in this case, types and features. What were you gonna say? Yeah, that's a feature. So we'll start there. Hey, hang on one second. So a feature would be a sand dune. So that's something that the agent of erosion creates on the surface, a sand dune. There were a couple other things that we covered that were also features that wind created on the land. So I heard you say abrasion, that's gonna be a type, we'll come back to that. Yes. Actually, that's more of another type, sorry. Okay, and sand dunes honestly is good enough. The other things that you might come across are mushroom rocks. If you remember, those were rocks that were like really skinny on the bottom, but then like ballooned on the top. And that's because the wind was blowing in the desert. It was blowing the sand at the bottom all day, and the bottom was wearing out before the top. So that was a mushroom rock. And the other thing was desert pavement. Desert pavement is when wind blows away all the loose sediment, such as I like to picture a baseball field. I know I talked about this in the video I did for this one. If you have a baseball field on a windy day, what's one thing you notice about that baseball field? The dirt's blowing in your eyes. And if you just let that happen for probably a couple years, so you pretty much just leave the baseball field alone, you don't repair it, it's gonna get all hard. All the loose sediments are gonna blow away, and it's gonna leave behind the compact, hard as a rock, hard as pavement soil behind. And that's what desert pavement is. It's all the loose stuff has been blown away, and you're left with large compact sediments below. So those are the features. And then there were some types. So types just mean like how it does it, like how the agent of erosion does its job. I already heard one was abrasion. If I could spell it. Abrasion. So remember, that's when the sand bumps against the rocks. And then you guys said sand blasting. That is when sand is blown against a rock for a long period of time. It's actually going to wear the rock down, much like sandpaper might, but instead of actually having sandpaper, it's just sand blowing against the sediments at a really high rate of speed. I think those are good for those. Now, what size or type sediments does wind erosion do? Perfect. Stronger the wind, bigger the sediment. Meaning on a normal everyday wind is strong enough to pick up some sand, a little bit of dirt and dust. But when we have crazy strong wind, that can move big rocks, big houses, trucks, etc. All right, next one was 4. How does this agent of erosion affect human life, property, and the economy? Now, we did not talk about this, but you have talked about this in your social studies class. How has wind erosion affected the economy or human life in the past and is still doing it today? Okay, it does destroy houses. That's just wind in general. That's not necessarily wind erosion where the sediments being moved from place to place. Yes, a tornado will absolutely destroy a house, but that's not wind erosion. That's just wind. But let's talk about wind erosion when sediments are picked up and moved around by the wind. The what? Dust bowl. Remember that one? Oh, yeah. See how social studies and science go together sometimes? Who remembers some details about the Dust Bowl? It was all dust. In fact, do you guys actually know what that dust was? Wasn't just dust like the dust that's in your house. It wasn't even sand. It was farmland. It was the soil. What happened was they plowed up the grasslands. I believe it was the grasslands. Now, don't quote me on this. Don't talk to your social studies teachers about it. They plowed up the grasslands. Those grasses, what was the grass doing to the dirt before? Holding it there. The roots of the sand held that sand, or the roots of the plants held the soil there. When they plowed it up, picture a plowed field. What do you see in a plowed field? Well, you do see rocks, but you see the dirt, right? You see the soil, unlike when I look out my window when I can see grass. I don't see the plants on a plowed field. It's just dirt hanging out there, dirt and soil. Then that dirt and soil gets dried out and it blows away in the wind. Number 5, discuss any additional information that's important about this agent of erosion. Did anybody have anything here? No? Anybody? Okay, again, that's not about so you mean transportation of sediments? So they do get moved. I mean, it's not wrong. Don't worry, don't cross it off. Only thing I want, guys, when wind drops off sediments, how are they going to be dropped off? When the wind, what? They're actually going to be sorted. So fix that, Jake. So remember that when the wind slows down, what's the first thing that's going to be dropped off? Yep. Bigger to smaller. All right. And then I did ask you to do glaciers as well. So we're going to start off with glaciers. I need the questions again. So glaciers, how does your agent of erosion transport materials? Just pick them up and move them. I'm going to go with, this is a little different, moves sediments like a bulldozer. Does that create a good enough picture for you guys? You know what a bulldozer is? Big, heavy piece of machinery that just pushes stuff. I'm sure there's more to it than that, but I think that's good enough. Kind of like a snowplow, I guess. Snowplow's gonna move anything that's in its way. All right, number 2, what are the types and features of this agent of erosion? In this case, I want surface features. Agents of erosion or glacier erosion, what does it do what's it make the land look like when it's done? That's the features. Perfect. If you remember nothing else, I want you to at least remember U-shaped valleys. There were other key words, other like moraines. Yep, hang on, you guys are getting ahead of me now. Moraines, kettle lakes. What else? Grooves. What else? Drumlins. And at least one more, maybe more. Yes, but not one of the keywords. Mountains are more plate tectonics type situation. Striations. Striations and grooves are very similar concept. Grooves are like ginormous striations. Striations are scratches. Grooves are scratches that are huge. Erratics was another one. So remember those big giant boulders that got moved there from places they don't belong. Another one would be Great Lakes and Finger Lakes. but you don't have to remember all of them. But remember, if you hear Great Lakes, you have to remember that's created by a glacier. If you hear Finger Lakes, you have to go ding, 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 glaciers. You don't need to necessarily understand how they are made. You need to understand, well, okay, you don't need to know the details of how they're made, but you need to go, that was made by a glacier. Number 3, what type and size of sediments? Any size, whatever's in the way. So since it's any size, what can we say about those sediments? Unsorted. How does this agent of erosion affect human life, property, and the economy? Again, nothing that we specifically covered. We did talk about it a little bit. What have glaciers done for this area? Yeah, okay. So created the Great Lakes. So the Great Lakes, you can think of all the benefits of the Great Lakes: clean, fresh water, the industry that has been built around the Great Lakes. Buffalo wouldn't be where it is if Lake Erie wasn't right there. Good enough. Also, oh, do you remember I said they brought all the gravel here to this area? Fertile soil, removed some soil from some places, dropped it off other places. Any of that would work there. And then how about an important feature, an important fact about this agent of erosion? Perfect. Created our local landscape. Which means it's the reason why when you look out the window over there, you see a bunch of little hills. It's the reason why Genesee does this. It's the reason we have our gravel pits. It's the reason we have the Great Lakes. It's basically everything in New York State. Then we wouldn't say that about glacier. Then we could not look out our window and say it was created by a glacier. It is weird. It is completely different when you drive out west and you just are on a completely flat road that goes on until your eye can't see any farther. My parents drive every year from here to my brother in Oregon, and they just go, they're like, the state goes on forever. All right, so that was this. We're gonna kind of switch gears and we're gonna go, remember how we were doing these review sheets every chapter? We skipped one last chapter because that's when I was out sick before Christmas. I did, so I always use the same review sheet. If when you get this, you'll see I changed it to chapter 5 on the front, but neglected or forgot that I also had a link on the back. So that was chapter 3. Change it to chapter 5. So like I said on the front, I did change it to chapter 5 review sheet. I did forget to change it on the back. So if you want to flip that over and change that to a 5, you can. Honestly, I'm sure you would have realized, but whatever, either way works. So we are going to take a moment to fill this out. I want you to flip your packet to the front cover. And I want you, well, actually, let's just start it together. I should have done this the other way, given this to you while we checked homework. But either way, first of all, what's the title of this chapter? Weathering, erosion, and deposition. Right off the bat, I hear 3 vocab words. So let's go ahead and put them right here. Weathering, erosion, and deposition. We need to define those. I mentioned this about 500,000 times. You need to know that weathering, erosion, and deposition are 3 very different processes. They happen basically together, but each one is something different. How in this little space can I define the word weathering? Breaking down. Of rocks, I'm going to add that. What's erosion then? Moving of broken rocks, which are sediments. So if you want to change that to sediments, you can. So moving of broken rocks. And then what's deposition? Dropping off. Hey guys, do the rest of you remember this stuff or only a couple people in the room? Just a couple people? Okay, just checking. No, I do appreciate your participation, but everybody else is becoming really reliant on you too. But thank you for your participation. Now the rest of you, step it up. So let's focus on, let's take this bit by bit. Let's focus on weathering first. We already have the definition, breaking down of rocks. Nate, haven't heard from you. What's another thing I should talk about with weathering? Look on the front cover of your reference table or your packet. Okay, so what is abrasion? Yep, it is. What kind of weathering is abrasion? Do you have your packet? Somebody help them out. I put them on the spot here. Thank you. I should have given you that. Let's start there. Physical weathering. Sorry to put you on the spot, Nate. Before I called on somebody, besides these two and Nate now, somebody else volunteer. What is physical weathering? Okay, so I do want to add, I want to make sure you know it's the breakdown of rocks. And just like Riley said, without changing the chemical composition. Key that you have that word without. So basically, hitting a rock with a hammer, physical weathering. Now, my next thing was going to be to list the different types. Nate already started. So I'm just going to go down this section for right now and get as many as I can here. Abrasion, Nate said it's what? The rubbing of rocks. Hang on, we're not there. What's a signature look for rocks that have been abraded? Smaller, smoother, rounder. Justin added frost wedging, right? That was the one you said? In this tiny space that I have here, are you able to tell me what frost wedging is? No? Okay, somebody besides Jake, Shelby, Nate, and Justin and Riley. What's frost wedging? Yep. Of freezing and expanding of water. Freezing and thawing of water. Water gets into a crack, freezes, expands, makes the crack bigger, melts, more water gets in the crack, freezes, expands, makes the crack bigger. This is what is killing our roads this winter. Tennessee Road is killing me again. Okay, every day water gets into the crack, it freezes, expands, makes the crack bigger. Then the next day that ice melts, more water gets into a crack, freezes, thaws, freezes, expands, makes the crack even bigger. These are potholes. Then the plow doesn't help. When the plow goes through, after that crack's got bigger, now the plow can grab a hold of the crack. It's not just the plow's fault. It is mostly the frost wedging. Give me another one. You got it. Exfoliation. When you exfoliate your face, what do? Peeling off the dead layer of skin. Same here. Top layer of rocks gets removed. And there's one more. Root action, also known as root pry. Sean, can you describe root action? What happens to those roots? What do they do? The sidewalks get slanted. Is that what you meant? Yeah. How do they get slanted? Can somebody help them out? Baby little roots get into any crack or go under the sidewalk or whatever. Those baby little roots, what do baby little roots do? They grow into big old ginormous roots. And those ginormous roots mess up the sidewalk. So roots grow and crack rocks. Perfect. Now we got to talk about the other type of weathering. Chemical. I'm going to go over here. Same deal. Breaks down rocks. So rocks still get broken down, but how does chemical weather do it? By changing the composition. Oh, shouting, and I just heard my voice echo down the hall. That was terrifying. This is why I don't teach with my door open. That was absolutely terrifying. Yeah, we need to add that for physical weathering too. What type of climate? So we'll add climate, 100% Shelby, warm and moist. See, I don't really need a microphone. I just need to scream my lungs out. Climate, warm and moist. Yeah, physical's cold and moist. Man, I totally just ruined my cool boxes. I'm gonna go here. Climate, cold and moist. Oh my God. Don't text. Don't go on your phone. Nothing will be shocking then. That is important. Somebody please remind me to talk about that with my third period class because I totally forgot today. Climate is absolutely, it's going to be at least 2 questions on the test. Need to know the climates. All right. There are 3 types of chemical weathering. Give me one. Oxidation is a fancy name for, nah, not this one. Rust. What's another type? Carbonation. That one's acid rain. And the last one, hydration. Hydration, like when you hydrate, is water. Weakens. Yeah. And one more side note here. How about rocks made out of what? will chemically weather a lot? Calcite. Oh, I'm going to say are less resistant, which means weather fast. Or weather a lot. That's weathering. You took a quiz on weathering about a week or so ago. That will all show up on the test again on Friday. You have the quiz. I gave that back last week. We went over it. That quiz is basically all fair game. You're going to want to make sure you understood that quiz you got back last week. So now let's move on to erosion. We already wrote up here that erosion is the moving of the broken pieces. We start off with 5 agents. You can just set it right there. And then here you'll need one of these. 5 agents of erosion. Carlos, give me one of them. Glaciers. Yes, thank you. Give me the other G one. Somebody shout the other G one out. Just like to keep them organized. Thank you. And then there are 3 W's. Wind, water, waves. By the way, what's another word for gravity erosion? Or another words? We did it yesterday.
Oh, a mass.
There you go. You don't need to know that. You don't need to be able to repeat that word, meaning like if they ask like what made these rocks fall downhill and the answer you want to say is gravity, but they say mass movement, then you need to know that. But if it's a fill in the blank and you say gravity, you are perfect. So this is why I decided not to finish the review that we're working on in the packet. Let's just list some important features about gravity erosion. We did this one yesterday, so this should be review. First of all, what do the sediments look like? Unsorted. What's their signature look for rocks that are broken by gravity? Not smaller, smoother, and rounder. They're what? Angular. This is, you know, when I drop all those rocks, I'm like, boom. They're not small, smooth, and round. They get all pointy and jagged. Let's see. If I think of something else for gravity, we'll come back. Oh yeah, Dur. Driving force of all erosion. And then we'll wrap up the front and call it a day with glaciers. Key things that when you hear, which is it's any size, it's another word for any size. Unsorted. Moves anything in their way. And then just give me some key features that if you hear these, your brain thinks glaciers. Absolutely, if you remember nothing else, like I said. U-shaped valleys. I'm just going to list them off the sheet we just did. Moraines. Kettle lakes. Great Lakes, Finger Lakes, striations. All of those, when you hear those words, your brain automatically goes to glaciers. We will pick this up again tomorrow. I got to get you your homework.